The young widow didn't mean to speak. The words slipped out as naturally as a breath when she looked up from her untouched coffee and met the stranger's eyes through the rain-soaked cafe window. "You look tired," she said softly. "Like my husband, just before he left." The man froze. Outside, traffic roared. Inside, the cafe hummed with life. But in that single moment, the world narrowed to two broken souls sitting 3 tables apart, both haunted by something they never spoke about, both carrying grief in different shapes. What neither of them knew was that this simple sentence, spoken by a woman who had already lost everything, would become the turning point that saved 2 lives. Daniel Cross was a name the business world admired and feared. CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech empires, his face appeared on magazine covers, his decisions moved markets, and his wealth could buy anything money could reach. Yet every evening, without fail, he sat alone in the corner of the same small cafe, staring out the window like a man waiting for something that never came. His suit was expensive, his watch worth more than most people's yearly salaries, but his eyes told a different story. They were hollow, exhausted, and burdened by a weight no success could lift. 3 months earlier, Daniel's wife had walked out of their glass mansion, leaving behind a note that read, "I married your ambition, not you." Since then, the silence in his life had grown louder than any boardroom. He worked longer hours, slept less, and drank coffee like it was medicine. Yet no matter how busy he stayed, he couldn't outrun the emptiness. The cafe had become his refuge because no one recognized him there. No praise. No expectations. Just the rain, the glass, and his thoughts. Across the room sat Emily. She was young, too young to wear grief so naturally, but sorrow clung to her like a second skin. Her hands wrapped around a mug she never drank from, her eyes drifting between the window and the wedding ring she hadn't taken off. Emily had lost her husband, Adam, to a sudden heart attack at 32. One moment, he was complaining about being tired. 2 weeks later, he was gone. She came to the cafe every evening because it was the last place they had laughed together. That night, when Emily looked up and saw Daniel's reflection in the glass, something inside her broke open. He looked exactly like Adam had in those final days, drained, distant, quietly drowning. And before fear could stop her, she spoke. "You look tired, like my husband before he left." Daniel turned slowly, unsure if he'd heard her right. No one spoke to him here. Especially not like that. Especially not with a voice so calm yet shattered. "I'm sorry," Emily added quickly. "I didn't mean to intrude. It's just... I recognize that look." He hesitated, then gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Please," he said. "Sit with me." That conversation changed everything. Emily didn't ask what he did for a living. Daniel didn't ask why she wore sorrow so openly. They spoke instead about exhaustion, the kind that sleep doesn't cure. Emily told him how Adam ignored the signs, how he believed rest was weakness, how she wished she'd forced him to slow down. Daniel listened, each word striking closer to home than he wanted to admit. "I thought success would make me feel alive," Daniel confessed quietly. "But I've never felt more alone." Emily smiled sadly. "My husband used to say, 'What's the point of winning if you don't have time to live?' I didn't understand him then. I do now." Night after night, they met again. Conversations deepened. Silence became comfortable. Emily found herself laughing for the first time in months. Daniel found himself breathing again. But the greatest challenge lay ahead, because healing meant facing what they'd both been running from. Daniel began missing meetings. Leaving work early. His board noticed. His partners warned him. "You're losing focus," they said. But for the first time, Daniel didn't panic. Instead, he felt something unfamiliar, clarity. Emily, on the other hand, was terrified. She felt guilt for smiling again. Guilt for enjoying Daniel's company. Guilt for letting someone new see her pain. Late one evening, she stood to leave abruptly, tears spilling without warning. I can't do this, she whispered. I loved my husband. If I let myself feel again, it's like I'm betraying him. Daniel stood too, his voice steady but gentle. Love doesn't disappear, he said. It changes shape. But it never disappears. A week later, Daniel collapsed at work, stress, exhaustion, warning signs ignored. As he lay in the hospital, Emily sat beside him, holding his hand, terrified of losing another tired man. When Daniel woke, he saw her tears and understood the truth. Success had almost killed him. Grief had almost buried her. And love, unexpected and imperfect, had saved them both. Months passed. Daniel stepped down as CEO, choosing balance over power. Emily started a foundation in Adam's name, raising awareness about burnout and emotional health. They didn't rush love. They respected the past while building something new. One rainy evening, they returned to the café, the same table, the same window. Daniel reached for Emily's hand and smiled. You saved me, he said. Emily shook her head. No, she replied softly. We saved each other. Outside, the rain fell gently. Inside, two once broken souls sat whole, not because life became easy, but because they chose to truly live. Emily never planned to show anyone Adam's letter. It stayed folded in the deepest corner of her bag, soft at the edges from being touched too many times. One quiet afternoon, while Daniel rested after therapy, the paper slipped out onto the table between them. Daniel didn't reach for it. He waited. Emily's hands trembled as she unfolded it herself, her voice barely steady enough to read. I'm tired, Em. Not the kind sleep fixes. If something ever happens to me, promise you won't freeze your life in the moment I leave. Love isn't meant to be a cage. Tears streamed down her face. For months she had lived like breathing itself was disloyal. Daniel listened without interruption, understanding now that Adam hadn't been a shadow between them, but a bridge. A man who loved his wife enough to want her alive even without him. That night, Emily slept without guilt for the first time since the funeral. Healing doesn't happen quietly. It attracts resistance. Daniel's former partners leaked stories, accusations of weakness, headlines mocking the CEO who lost his edge. His phone buzzed constantly with reminders of the life he walked away from. Meanwhile, Emily's family struggled to understand her change. You're smiling too soon, they whispered. People will talk. The pressure was suffocating. One evening, outside the cafe, Emily stopped walking. Maybe we met at the wrong time, she said, voice cracking. Maybe we're just teaching each other how to survive, not how to stay. Daniel felt the old fear rise, the instinct to retreat into work, into control, into loneliness. But he didn't run. He stepped closer instead. Everyone leaves when things get hard, he said. I don't want to be that man anymore. For the first time, Emily believed someone might choose her pain and stay. The call came at dawn. Emily's foundation had been denied funding. Daniel's health scan showed complications. 2 dreams threatened to collapse on the same day. In the hospital hallway, exhaustion wrapped around them like a storm. What if we're fooling ourselves? Emily whispered. What if hope is just another lie? Daniel leaned his forehead against hers. Then we'll fail honestly, he said. But we won't go back to living half alive. That moment became their quiet vow. Daniel sold his remaining shares and invested privately in Emily's mission. The foundation opened small, 1 room, 1 counselor, 1 sign on the door, you are allowed to rest. A year later, rain returned. The cafe looked the same, but everything else had changed. A young man sat alone by the window, shoulders slumped, eyes vacant. Emily noticed him first. She hesitated, then smiled knowingly. You look tired, she said gently. Would you like to sit with us? The man looked up, surprised, confused, and grateful all at once. Daniel watched silently, understanding now that pain doesn't end, it passes forward as wisdom. The cafe had come full circle. Sometimes life doesn't save us with miracles. Sometimes it saves us with strangers. With sentences spoken without planning. With courage to say, I see you. If you're tired today, don't wait until your body forces you to stop. If you're grieving, know this: love never asks you to disappear with it. And if someone ever looks at you through a cafe window and recognizes your pain, listen carefully. It might be the beginning of your life returning.